Can you tell us what subject it was that really piqued your interest for as long as it did and stayed with you?
Yeah, it was the 2002 deaths of 11 undocumented immigrants. A lot of Iowans will remember it because the bodies were discovered in Iowa when a grain elevator worker in Denison opened a rail car at harvest time and found these bodies inside. I was working at the Des Moines Register at the time, but I was in eastern Iowa. I didn't end up doing much of the coverage on it at the time, very little then, but it sort of stuck in my head, and I think it did for a lot of people. That I kept thinking about what would have been like inside the rail car, and what are some of the stories of the people who were in there. I wondered about the investigation and who was involved in that, and all those things stayed with me. So eventually, as I'm, working, what are some of the stories of the people who were in there? I wondered about the investigation and who was involved in that, and all those things stayed with me. So eventually, as I'm going to start working on a book proposal related to that story, trying to dig a little more into it, find out more of the stories of the people involved. At the time, I decided I was going to look at some other options so I wouldn't waste the research, because I felt like I'd found some good elements to the story, I guess. And eventually, I just approached Iowa Public Television really through just their general email address, and ended up asking if I could get this made into a documentary. Would you be interested? And basically had a positive response, and that's where I ended up. Over time, I eventually partnered with Paul Kakert with Storytellers International, and this is where we've just about to finish the documentary now. We spent a lot of time traveling all over Texas, doing interviews with government agents or a variety of people who played some role in the story. And we also did filming several locations in Iowa, Des Moines, Iowa City, and Ankeny. We interviewed two University of Iowa professors who talked about what these people would have been enduring mentally and physically inside the rail car. We talked to several people with state agencies in Iowa, the State Medical Examiner's Office, and the State Division of Criminal Investigation. We also talked to somebody on film from the Crawford County Sheriff's Department, as well as a few other people in Denison, and what this meant to people over time. I was able to talk to people that might not have been talking to the media earlier, and also track down more relatives. We were surprised by the different reactions in the different states we went to when we would mention, what we're working on. In Iowa, people would tend to say, I remember that, that was so sad, or that, I haven't forgotten that either, things like that. And in Texas, where these, they do see this kind of thing happen more, and they're more familiar with it. Their response would tend to be, well, why would you tell that story? and we forget in the Midwest how much they see this all the time, and we don't. But it's and I'm not trying to judge them. It was just a stark difference in the reactions we got, so. These 11 immigrants had been trying to slip into the country illegally, and the smugglers who were helping them had locked the rail car in hopes that Border Patrol would not notice an open latch door. And as a result, the smugglers eventually realized that they have made it past Border Patrol inspection, but the smugglers have lost track of the train because they assumed everybody was emptied out, because one car was. So by the time they realize that they've lost the train, they end up not being able to find it. And probably for the subject itself of the story, I think the thing that stuck with me the most was this boy Byron, the 18-year-old from Guatemala, who basically he was the youngest of 9 children. His siblings had all left their Guatemala farm, but they were wanting him to stay. You need to stay with mom and dad. They're getting old. They need help with the farm. But like most teenagers, he had this desire to sort of see the world and have his turn at a different life or a different job. And in the end, he ended up choosing to leave, even though his siblings were actually sending him money to try to keep him happy and financially satisfied, I guess. So it's this idea that this boy who was living really a comfortable life for Guatemala standards, and really even not so bad for U.S. standards, was well taken care of by his siblings, and he still took this gamble, which cost him his life. He's started out his career in Border Patrol. He ends up with immigration as an investigator over time, and he was one of the key investigators in this case. But and he would himself say that after a while you can become hardened if you're in Border Patrol long enough, because you do every day. You hear the sad stories, and he would say that he had become that way somewhat. But he himself, is Latino, and I think his grandparents came from Mexico. But he's this really interesting. He has this really interesting view where he believes very strongly in our nation's border policy and strict border control. Yet at the same time, he's compassionate enough that he becomes friends with this Guatemalan boy's older brother, and who also originally was an undocumented immigrant. So you have this unusual friendship, and you have this sort of this situation for this Latino immigration agent who, his whole career has had people saying, "You're one of us. Why are you doing this?" And so it's those two really, that's the reasons we focused on them, because they were most compelling. Their stories were to us, and so those two, as well as the older brother, and those are the main focuses of the story. We used them to tell about the investigation and the deaths. Has been fascinating, and I guess just how much I enjoyed it. I always saw myself as such a newspaper person. I didn't really ever think I'd want to go the TV route, but it's been a lot of fun, and it does not feel so different. You can still report it the same way. You can tell a good story, and it was just a lot of fun. A commitment from them that they're planning to air it in October this year. We don't know the exact date yet, but we should know soon. But yeah, we're very happy about that, obviously, and there might be also a chance that it would be they would help us get it aired on other PBS affiliates around the country. There's no certainty yet, but it's something they've expressed a willingness to work on with us. So.